In 1938, William B. Ruger Sr. was a student at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. During that time, he designed a machine gun for military use. In 1949, which incidentally is also the year of my birth, he entered into a partnership with Alexander McCormick Sturm. With an original investment of only $50,000, they founded Sturm, Ruger & Company. That same year, the company introduced its first sporting firearm, which was patented in 1950 as the Ruger pistol, and one of which many, including myself many years later, developed a love-hate relationship with, at least until 2016, when the Mark IV was introduced. But that is a topic for a later video. The Sturm, Ruger & Company is believed to be one of the last American companies left over from the first American industry. Sturm, Ruger & Company is still 100% American-owned and remains invested in its mission today as it was when it started. All Ruger products are still designed and built by Americans in American factories. My concentration today is on one of the Ruger's revolver lines, of which there are two: single-action revolvers and double-action revolvers. At the current Ruger website, the selection between double-action and single-action revolvers are many. I am interested in presenting only one double-action revolver, the GP100. There are, at the time of this video, 25 different models of GP100 revolvers from which to choose. Hello, my friend. It's the Range Ronin, and the particular model for discussion today is the Ruger Model 1705, otherwise known as the KGP-141, or as commonly referred to as the GP100. The GP100 comes with recoil-reducing cushioned black rubber Hogue monogrip, which you will really come to appreciate when shooting. This particular version has a 6-round capacity that can be of .38 Special or .357 Magnum flavoring. 7-round versions can also be found. The overall length is 9 1/2 inches. The front sight is a ramp type, but which can be changed to a different sight. The rear white outline square notch sight is fully adjustable for windage and elevation. The unloaded weight is 40 ounces. By comparison, a government model 1911's unloaded weight is around 39 ounces. The barrel length is 4.20 inches, and which has 5 grooves with a 1 18.75 right-hand twist. Construction is stainless steel with a brushed stainless finish. The GP100 is available in California and Massachusetts. For reference purposes, the catalog number is KGP-141, and it has a current suggested retail price of $1,029. Of the many features that also apply to all Ruger double-action firearms is that the triple locking cylinder is locked into the frame at the front, rear, and bottom for more positive alignment and dependable operation shot after shot. The grip frame design easily accommodates a wide variety of custom grips. Disassembly of integrated subassemblies requires no special tools and allows for easy maintenance and assembly. And thanks to Bill Ruger, a transfer bar mechanism provides a measure of security against accidental discharge. Now that the basic specifications are ingrained into your brain, let's really see what the GP100 in stainless steel is all about. The Ruger GP100 incorporates the robust features of the Ruger Red Hawk in its design and can handle just about any .357 Magnum load that you want to send down range. The GP100 uses the crane lock of the Red Hawk, which was later used in the small frame SP101 revolver. All of these models use the same solid frame thickness and double latching system that is used on the heavy .44 Magnum. Because of these features, the GP100 series is widely described as one of the strongest medium frame revolvers ever made. The GP100 came equipped with a blade front sight when I purchased it. I found that I could use the front sight from the Ruger Red Hawk, which has a red insert, and it soon replaced the standard front sight, but that has been changed since with a green fiber optic sight. Changing the front sight on the GP100 is a simple affair. There is a plunger at the muzzle end of the revolver, which, when pressed, a Glock tool is perfect for this, allows the front sight to be removed and replaced with the same front sight or a front sight of your choice. This is a feature that allows you to play with different front sight combinations. As mentioned earlier, the white outline notched rear sight is adjustable for windage and elevation. The rear sight is blended well into the frame of the revolver. The finish on both blued and stainless steel versions of the GP100 is excellent, with the stainless steel version finish being brushed. The top of the barrel has very fine serrations to help prevent glare from interfering with the sighting of the revolver. The fully shrouded barrel adds weight to the revolver and also protects the cylinder rod. I welcome the addition of a fully shrouded barrel on a revolver, and Ruger did a nice job of blending the shroud with the revolver to provide a streamlined look. One of my top likes of Ruger revolvers is the means by which the cylinder can be opened. There is no pushing or pulling of the cylinder latch, as is found on most Smith & Wesson, Colt, Dan Wesson, and other modern revolvers. A simple press of the cylinder latch is all that is needed. Another of my top liked features is that while the Smith & Wesson revolvers are good at trigger staging, the staging of the GP100 trigger is much better and very distinct. Double action trigger pulls slightly heavy, but is also very smooth. The hammer can be staged very easily, so that just a wisp of rearward movement of the trigger drops the hammer at the staging point. I found this feature very useful when attempting that final sight alignment before I'm ready to drop the hammer. A staging point is a distance between when the double action trigger pull transitions to single action. The point at which transitioning takes place is very easily felt. At this point, the operator can hold the hammer still until it's decided not to. Then, a very short pull of the trigger is needed until the hammer falls. Essentially, once the staging point is reached, the revolver behaves more like a single-action revolver. This staging point provides a nice way to ensure that the sights are properly aligned for an accurate shot. Speaking of single-action mode, The trigger pull average on my GP100 is 3 pounds 14 1/2 ounces and is almost as crisp as a good 1911 trigger. When the hammer falls on this revolver, you definitely know it. The face of the trigger is smooth and wide, while the hammer is somewhat narrow, but is well checkered for a good purchase with the thumb if only single action operation is desired. The cylinder gap, that distance between the forcing cone and the face of the cylinder, also known as the flash gap, is very important. It must be tight enough to minimize side escaping gases from fleeing the revolver, but not too tight to lock up the revolver once the face of the cylinder becomes thick with burnt powder and other residue, or due to normal heat expansion of the cylinder. The industry standard for a cylinder gap is 4 thousandths to 8 thousandths of an inch, with 6 thousandths of an inch being common. The flash gap on this revolver is 4 thousandths of an inch, with no detectable end play. The wider the flash gap, the more velocity you will lose, and the general guideline is 1.5% velocity loss for each 1/1000th of an inch barrel to cylinder gap. The loss in velocity, however, is so minuscule that you or your target would ever notice it. More noticeable is the amount of side flash, and that must be taken seriously, as it can cause serious injury if your support hand is near or covering the flash gap. This should be taken as seriously as not covering the shooting hand with the thumb of the support hand when firing a semi-automatic pistol. Damage will occur. While some will say that the GP100 is a heavy revolver, one must consider how well that plays in taming the recoil of the .357 Magnum cartridge. Aside from side flash and muzzle flash, it is not difficult to put rounds down range, and enjoy doing so. I would also like to put the weight of the GP100 into perspective. 1911 government model semi-automatic pistols weigh in at around 39.4 ounces, or 2.49 pounds, unloaded. By comparison, the GP100 weighs in at 40 ounces, or 2.5 pounds, unloaded. There is not enough weight difference between the Ruger GP100 and a standard 1911 pistol to even talk about, and is something that a good pair of suspenders can assist with. Obviously, there is a difference in width between a 1911 and a GP100. With a width of 1.550 inches, the total width can hardly be considered thin. The shape of a revolver, however, has an advantage over a semi-automatic pistol. The cylinder in virtually any revolver can actually tuck into the body curvature just above the hip, whereas a semi-automatic cannot, with its, for the most part, straight-edge design. I have found that with a well-positioned and angled holster, a large frame revolver is actually more comfortable to carry than a full-size semi-automatic pistol. In a way, let's wrap this segment up and take the GP100 to the range. Up front, I will state that I do not like to shoot .38 special ammunition in a revolver intended for .357 Magnum fodder. It is not because of recoil, but it is because I do not like flame cutting the cylinder that is to chamber a longer cartridge. My preference is for a lightly loaded factory .357 Magnum cartridge for range work and factory fully loaded self-defense cartridges for serious work. Firing a .38 special cartridge exhibits about the same felt recoil as firing a 9mm round through a semi-automatic. Even .38 plus P ammunition does little to bother the hand. The weight of the GP100 revolver helps greatly in taming the recoil of the .357 Magnum cartridge. While 180 grain hunting loads are stout, the Ruger GP100 really shines with 125 grain loads. In my humble opinion, hunting loads, like the 180 grain, are best reserved for the 6-inch barreled version of the GP100, or maybe the Ruger M77 357 bolt-action carbine. The inherent accuracy of the GP100 is excellent, whereupon true accuracy is mainly dependent on the skill of the operator in handling the Magnum loadings and finding what loading works best with the firearm. My particular GP100 seems to favor Hornady Critical Defense 125 grain FTX and, surprisingly, Fiocchi 158 grain XTP HP. I also have some 357 Magnum ammunition that is loaded on the conservative side that works well for range practice. Since my GP100 is relegated mainly to house duty, Remington 158 grain plus P 38 Special is chambered. I said that I do not like to shoot 38 Special ammunition in a revolver intended for the 357 Magnum fodder. I did not say that I would not shoot them. While the Hornady Critical Defense 125 grain FTX resides in a couple of Safariland speed loaders, which I recommend over HKS if they are needed to be called upon. The cylinder release on a GP100 is, of course, different from that found on the Smith & Wesson, push-to-release, Colt, pull-to-release, and even Dan Wesson revolvers, where the cylinder release is located on the frame in front of the cylinder. Push the cylinder release button, and a stout and heavy cylinder rotates outward into the hand. Speed loaders for the S&W 586, 686 work well with the GP100, and with Safariland speed loaders, reloading is very quick. The distance between the face of the cylinder and forcing cone, also known as the flash gap, is less than 0.004 of an inch, and that, my friend, is tight. However, there is still a goodly amount of side flash that comes out of that cylinder. It is also very important that grips do not interfere with expended flared brass, and the stock Ruger grip does not interfere with the reloading process. Saying that trying to conceal a revolver like the GP100 is difficult would be an understatement. It is, however, doable, given the right holster, clothing, time of season, body shape, etc. The GP100 fits well into an IWB holster from Simply Rugged Holsters. While I have carried the GP100 in an IWB holster from Simply Rugged Holsters, the holster will collapse when the revolver is out of the holster. One answer to this dilemma, for me, is the Alien Gear Cloak Tuck 2.0 for revolvers, which does not collapse when the revolver is not holstered. I find this holster ideal for hip carry, and I can set it up for cross-draw carry as well, but I rarely hip carry any handgun these days due to physical restrictions. That fact led me to the Falco D603 Timeless Rotor Shoulder Holster with counterbalance system. I have one of these holsters for the 1911 and decided to take a chance that the roto would hold up to the bulk and weight of the GP100. The Timeless Rotor Shoulder Holster with counterbalance system has proven to be an excellent carrier for the GP100 and its speed loaders. I will have a separate video review of the holster after I use it for a bit. Under layers of outer loose clothing, as is common with cold weather temperatures, GP100 all but hides away nicely. A padded cold weather vest under a layer of a hunting jacket or barn coat will reveal nothing to the casual observer. The offside ammunition carrier provides the means for me to carry 2 speed loaders as close to the body as possible. The retention straps help to keep things tucked in close, as well as keeping the trousers in place. Even I was surprised that I did not modify the GP100 other than replacing the front sight with the Ruger fiber green sight. With that said, I did go through a phase of updating the grips to something more personal, which included exotic wood grips from several sources. I did find, however, that the standard Ruger grips that came with the revolver afforded the best control of the revolver when firing full-load .357 Magnum ammunition, and did the best job of cushioning the felt recoil when firing such. After shooting the GP100, I was led to purchase its younger brother, the SP101 in 2.5-inch barrel flavoring, and it is a revolver that I do carry at times. Obviously, the SP101 is a lot more relentless in the recoil department with .357 Magnum ammunition, but it is every bit the quality of firearm as the GP100. I have a separate video review of the Ruger SP101 and have provided a link to it in the description section. While I really like Smith & Wesson revolvers and my Dan Wesson Model 15-2 because of their trigger smoothness, a Ruger single-action or double-action revolver would come out when I need to exercise magnum power with maximum control. With the Ruger M77 .357 rifle, the GP100 is an excellent match. In fact, I just might consider the M77-44 to pair up with the Ruger Red Hawk. Now, that would be a most excellent match. The GP100 comes in different barrel lengths, and while the GP100 is primarily chambered for .38 Special, .357 Magnum, .22 Long Rifle, 10mm Auto, .327 Federal Magnum, and .44 Special versions are also available. Also, there are several variations available through distributors such as Gallery of Guns and Tallow, as well as the Ruger GP100 Match Champion, which is a revolver I hope to be reviewing, put in 10mm flavoring. And there is also a Super GP100 in .357 Magnum and 9mm chambering. The Ruger GP100 is a full-size service revolver, and it will provide full service for a very, very long time. Revolvers are not going away. In fact, even with the advent of high-capacity semi-automatic pistols, the revolver remains steadfast, and many people carry them for personal protection and hunting. They make excellent home defense firearms. They are simple to operate and can chamber cartridges many semi-automatic pistols cannot. A revolver, if properly cared for and operated within its design limits, can last for many generations. I would like to see revolvers become renaissance. The Ruger GP100 is just a fine example of what a revolver can be and what a revolver is capable of. The GP100 is simply a rough and ready firearm. Well, there it is, another non-succulent gun review, and I hope that I did not bore you to death, and that you'll hang with me for future gun and gear reviews. Until that time, be safe out there.